I think one of the most important parts of Pro Tools is here in the setup menu, and it's called the Playback Engine. A lot of the time I get phone calls from people saying, oh, the music's all playing through the loudspeakers of the computer, it's not playing through the audio interface, and that's because the Playback Engine hasn't been set. Now, the Playback Engine is one of those things you should check and start up, in my opinion. And all it is it just selects for Pro Tools what interface is being utilised. So at the moment, I'm using a little Scarlett 6i6 USB audio interface. So that's what's selected just now. But if I click on this, you'll see we've got a number of different options. And one of the ones that's most confusing is what's called the Pro Tools Aggregate Io, because people think that is the Pro Tools input-output, and it's not. You have to have your computer set up in a particular way for that to be the case. The built-in output is the one where the sound from the computer will be coming out the loudspeakers of the computer. You may have other audio interfaces connected to the computer that show what's going on there. I mean, you might have a TV connected to the HDMI output, and that would come up there. But here, if that didn't say Scarlett 6i6, then I wouldn't be able to interface with the Scarlett 6i6. So it's very important at the beginning of your session, just open up the Playback Engine and make sure your audio interface is the highlighted interface. Now, a couple of other very important parts in this window, and the first one is called the hardware buffer size. And you see that goes from 32 samples to 1024 samples. That's 32 44,100ths of a second, or all the way up to 1024 44,100ths of a second. And the shorter sample, a buffer is basically like a bucket of information. And a small buffer with a small number of samples is like a thimble, and it can only take a tiny amount of information before it has to dump it out, before it gets full and it has to dump it out. And that means that the throughput of information from input to output is very short, and therefore there's no delay, which is called latency. And that can be quite horrible when you're recording, if you hear a sort of echo between what you're saying or singing or playing and what's coming out of the headphones. So when you're recording, it's better if you choose one of these shorter sample frequencies. When we are playing back or we're mixing, if we go to 1024 samples, that means the computer has got a lot more time to take the audio information in, process it, and then put it out. So a lot of the time what I do is when I'm recording, I set it to 32 or 64 samples, and when I'm mixing, I set it to 1024 samples. Then I won't get any hiccups or errors. Talking of errors, underneath that is this host engine that says ignore errors during playback which may cause clicks and pops. Don't tick that. There's virtually no point in doing it unless you've got a very old, very slow, very clunky computer. Also, just let that default to being ticked to the dynamic plugin processing. If you're working with video, you may need to enable your video engine, which you do in the Playback Engine. The last thing here is what we call the cache, and the cache is just an amount of RAM that can hold your project in it. If you've got enough RAM, and this little computer I'm using has got 8 gigabytes of RAM, I could set that to 4 gigabytes, and what that would mean is that all of the audio information would get stored in the RAM, so it gets output very, very quickly. It's a very efficient way of working, and it means the computer's not straining at all as well. So sometimes it's nice just to, on your disc playback, just change your cache size up a little bit so that it'll process things very, very quickly and efficiently, and the computer won't strain at all. So that's the Playback Engine. I genuinely think that's one of the most important windows in the whole of Pro Tools.